actually almost excluded from being a suspect because they're like, his mustache was too distinctive.
Just looks like Friedrich Nietzsche.
And they're like,
I was going to say that.
Yes, his mustache was like a thing of legends. He looked like a goth Lorax.
Yeah, iconic.
But they're like, well, back at the actual time that the murders were happening, it wasn't this big. Anyway, they both sound like they totally sucked, and H.H. Holmes definitely was a murderer. Like, whether he was Jack the Ripper or not, he was fully a murderer and misogynist and a bigamist. So, just don't murder people. Just don't murder people.
Yeah, and don't be so misogynistic that even Victorians think you're misogynistic.
Yeah, don't be so misogynistic that they're calling you an extreme misogynist in the Victorian era.
Seriously. You passed the bar, dude, and the bar was really low. The bar was touching the ground, and you passed the bar.
You dug a hole and went under it.
The bar hadn't even given us votes yet, and you were managing to scrape on under it.
What the hell, dude?
So let's move on to highlight and lowlight, unless, Francis, you have other H.H. Holmes facts that you didn't get to talk about.
There was just a couple things that you hadn't mentioned.
Okay, go for it.
Like you said, Sam and Dean, they got things right and they got things wrong. He did confess to 27 murders. He was only convicted for the murder of his business partner, Benjamin Pitzel. He probably only killed close to maybe 10 people in actuality.
He just wants to be special.
Yeah.
And he didn't really have an MO the way that Sam and Dean said he did, with pretty blonde, petite. He just murdered people who he couldn't trust, that were in his way, that were just there, basically.
I mean, the two mistresses and the two sisters, I guess, are probably the blondes that we're referring to in this episode, but...
Yeah, probably.
Probably? I mean, but who knows?
And like you said, that there was no... In his murder castle, there was, no evidence of, killings there. He probably never even used it as an actual murder place, so, I don't know where the term murder castle came from.
I think they just got excited in the media back in the 90s.
They probably did. And then, especially with some of the, torture devices that they claimed were in his murder castle, they hadn't even been invented yet. They weren't invented until the early 1900s.
Yeah. It's good. On one hand, I'm kind of relieved that the murder castle is fake. On the other hand, it's kind of disappointing to find out that the murder castle is fake.
I would have loved if it had been real and, we could have, visited and be
that would be a historical, museum or something now.
Yeah. That would have been so cool.
Well, on the other hand, I'm also glad that, a bunch of people didn't get murdered there, so...
They play up the myth of the murder castle even more on Timeless.
And at one point, Holmes claimed that he was possessed by Satan, and that's why he did all his killings, so Lucifer has some explaining to do if this is true.
Oh yeah, didn't he say I was born with the devil in me?
Which is funny because he never did anything as a child to, connect him to being a murderer in adulthood.
Yeah.
He just wants to be special.
He doesn't even technically fit the definition of a serial killer. He is a multiple murderer, but he's not a serial killer in, the definition sense.
Yeah, because he doesn't really have an MO, so he can't really be put in that serial killer category.
He's not doing that cool off, build up, cool off, build up. That's not happening for him.
He's just I just like death. Yay!
He's an opportunist killer.
And then there was a fun fact that kind of ties H.H. Holmes to the supernatural world, which I don't think any of the writers caught, but he did have siblings. He had an older sister, Ellen, an older brother, Arthur, a younger brother, Henry, and a younger sister, Mary. So we had Ellen, Arthur Ketch, Henry Winchester, and Mary Winchester.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, those are really common names, but, the coincidence is kind of cool.
The fact that all of the siblings have supernatural names.
Yeah.
I think that solidifies what Meredith was saying, that Eric has a bit of a fanboy.
Oh, definitely.
There was one of the articles I read said that there was some modern day people have said that he experienced some McDonald's triad harming animals and abuse as a child, but there's no actual record of any of that.
Yeah, no primary sources. Unless we have one person's diary who's just he accidentally stepped on a rat today.
We have H.H. Holmes' diary. We have two of them. We have two H.H. Holmes diaries that have survived.
Oh my gosh.
There's a read.
That's what we were comparing the Jack the Ripper letter to, because that's how Jeff Mudgett, his great-great-grandson, got into this whole H.H. Holmes with Jack the Ripper thing, was that he inherited two of H.H. Holmes' diaries. That's the other thing I forgot to mention, was that in his diaries, he does say that he killed some sex workers in London. He makes that claim in his diary.
When did he make the claim?
I'm not sure.
Because if it was before or after the news actually broke of the murders and like the whole media circus started, that's just important to note.
Yeah.
Because he might have been like, I want a piece of that.
Or I feel like that's it. Even if it, like, say, like, he wrote the Dear Boss letter, like, which is, it kind of seems like he maybe did. That doesn't necessarily mean he was Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, and also the police and the newspapers were getting literally hundreds, probably thousands of letters, and each of them were weird. I've looked at the archives. Some of these people were really dramatic. It was great.
This particular letter, I think, had details that weren't released before that letter was received. So I think that's why it's so considered to be, like, the letter, but who knows,
also the
honestly.
From Hell letter. Which one was the one that had part of a human organ with it?
I don't remember. I did a lot of reading on both these last night.
Oh yeah, it was gross.
Highlight and low light for this week. Let's start with Audrey.
So my highlight was when they finally trapped Holmes, because I freaking hate that dude. Like, obviously he was terrible in real life, but this incarnation was especially odious because he was all dirty and disgusting.
He was scary. He's one of the scarier ghosts I feel like we've dealt with up to this point.
Well, especially that jump scare when we first see him in the beginning of the episode, like just the eyeball. I'm like,
that's not supposed to be there.
Like, no.
When he's like reaching in to touch Joe, that makes me real uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, it's just like, get your dirty freaking hand off of her. You need a shower. Go take it.
Yeah.
Like, in real life, I just have this impression of him as this, like, kind of shrewish, mustachioed gentleman who's, like, nasty, but, like, in a weaselly sort of way.
Yeah.
This one was just like, oh crap, he could actually overpower me.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, we gained a couple inches in height. Oh shoot. Oh gosh, his nails.
I know, right? It's like,
catch things from those.
It's like a kingfisher, like, I'm just gonna go catch a trout real quick. And my lowlights were anything involving Holmes, because ew. And also, I mentioned this earlier, when Ellen and Joe were angry at the boys regarding John, because
it's not their fault.
Granted, it was an emotional time, but it wasn't their fault, yeah.
They were literally children.
Yeah.
Frances, how about you?
So my highlight is just the episode as a whole being about a serial killer, because that's my love. And then my low light is, like, even though we've had hints over last season and the beginning of this season that John is a horrible person, it, like, has been solidified by Ellen telling Joe that it was John's fault that Joe's dad is dead.
Yeah.
Turd.
I mean, that's kind of a highlight as well, because, like, yay, we knew it all along, but, like, for the boys, it's really horrible that they're like, yeah, our dad was just really bad.
Just one extra thing that their dad was, like, horrible about.
Yeah.
And Meredith.
Maybe my low light's probably the same as Audrey's, because H.H. Holmes was just really gross in this episode.
Yeah.
His fingernails, I have a thing with fingernails. It's not those ones.
Yeah, no.
I was very aggravated by the screaming that he did when they closed that salt ring.
Oh, shut up. Like, stop being so dramatic.
Stop whining.
Shut up. My goodness. Highlight is just Joe, I think.
Joe.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like her.
Yes, indeed.
And also, I just really love watching women be, like, so heavily involved in taking down H.H. Holmes. Like, you know, it's weird that it's happened twice, but it's fun.
My lowlight is them using Joe for bait. I feel like we could have thought of literally any other solution. I just felt like the boys are like, well, she's already here, let's just go for it. I feel like we could have come up with a different plan at this point. You already almost lost her once. Let's not do that again. But whatever. And then my highlight is either Dean stealing the cement truck.
I had a thought when I heard him, when I saw him driving up in the episode, like, can Jensen actually drive that?
Jensen is a really good driver. I feel like, yeah, he can.
I love that for him.
Must have been supervision, but he was doing it.
Yeah.
He grew up on a ranch, so he could probably drive any.
Yeah, I think we saw him driving a tractor in Route 666. I feel like, yeah, he's comfy.
You know, I had no idea he grew up on a ranch, but I feel like it explains a lot.
Yeah, him and Jared are both from Texas. There's a lot of ranches there.
Yeah, no kidding.
And my other highlight is Sam and Joe making cute faces at each other in the car behind Ellen and Dean's backs. That's such younger sibling energy.
Yeah. We put all this focus on, like, her relationship with Dean.
I like that they had a little moment in the just the two of them.
I think there's more potential for them to be just uniting over feeling like little siblings with Dean.
Yeah. And then our next segment is called CBS. I have like a quick little thing about this one, but nothing major. Ellen wasn't really focused on the boys in this episode, and we don't actually hear what happened, but it does not sound to me like the boys were at the roadhouse when Bill was killed. Like, Bill died and John just like never came back to the roadhouse. So it doesn't sound like he had to stop there and pick up his children.
So which means he abandoned them somewhere.
Which just means
again.
that they were somewhere that wasn't with Ellen. If they were with Ellen, she should have held his children as collateral for her dead husband. But that's all I had for that. John Winchester sucks, and he left Joe without a father, so that sucks.
Yep.
Yes.
Mental health check. I'm not a psychologist. This segment is based purely on my own opinions, and a weekly reminder that if you're struggling with anything at all, please reach out for help. Anybody have anything for this? I have a couple things, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk.
It's good that Ellen and Joe were talking about what happened with John. Like, granted, it wasn't great that they were yelling about it, but it's good that Ellen finally told her what happened there.
Yeah,
I feel like
Obviously, that had a huge impact on both their lives.
I feel like it's a good opportunity for them to bond as mother and daughter.
Yeah. It's like, we both hate that Winchester.
I hope they take the opportunity for both them to deal with this, both like separately and together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Ellen's obviously been living with this knowledge for like years, and Joe, now that Joe is experiencing it, I hope Joe and Ellen can kind of like heal each other a little bit.
I feel like since, they don't really show up a whole bunch, I'm just gonna say that they did.
So, Joe and Dean had some feelings this week about their dads and hunting. So, and I noticed the way that they were talking about that was interesting. Like, I mentioned this earlier, Dean said that, like, his dad started him when he was so young, he didn't really have a choice. We've always kind of heard Dean say that this is what he always wanted to do. This is, like, he never wanted to do anything else. But, like, now he's saying, well, I never had the chance to want to do anything else, which we knew. Like I said earlier, he's now encouraging Joe to do anything else, literally anything else. And Sam really needed to hear that for years. His whole teen years, he needed to hear that he could want to do something else. And Dean couldn't tell him that, couldn't provide that for him. So it's nice that Dean is getting the chance with Joe, I guess, to express that, even though I think Dean is not in a place where he should be telling Joe what to do with her life. And Dean says, I'm a little twisted because of him liking the job and liking what he does. When Dean says that, he means twisted like something inside of him is irreparably broken. And Joe says, don't you think I'm a little twisted too? And Dean doesn't really say no, but you can tell that he thinks no. And I think Joe has every right to feel that she's also broken inside, but like Dean would never wish anyone to be as broken as he feels that he is. And he would never say that she is either. I just thought that exchange was really interesting.
Yeah.
There's no soul transactions this week, and that brings us to Sam's traumatic brain injury. Sam stayed conscious for all of this episode, mostly because he wasn't present for large parts of it.
Silly Jared. Stop breaking stuff.
He's out getting coffee and tearing down walls on different floors from Joe and Dean for like the majority of this episode.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, recommended rating. Francis, what would you like to rate this episode?
It's one of my favorites, so I would say like a 4 out of 5.
That's good. And Meredith?
I'll give it like a 9.
9? Okay.
Yeah, that's
out of
good.
10, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just how my brain works. I'm too metric.
And Audrey, what would you like to rate this episode?
Yeah, I was thinking about a 6 or a 7 because it's good because of the serial killer aspect, because I also really like hearing about serial. But at the same time, Holmes was just really disgusting.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I didn't like all the yelling between Ellen and everyone else.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sensitive to yelling, so there was a lot of yelling.
There was.
Okay, that's excellent. To finish off this week's episode, we have Line of the Week. Let's start with Meredith.
I'll go with Dean saying that the killer was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
That was pretty funny. And Audrey.
Ellen talking about Ash, when she said that he got him to break. Guy's a genius, but he folds like a cheap suit.
That would be one of my
line.
favorite character lines about Ash. My favorite little character note about Ash that we've learned so far.
Oh yeah, it's so great.
That he's like a bad liar.
I usually have a list of contenders for favorite line, but that was just blank out favorite line.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And Francis.
Mine is one that you mentioned, KJ, is when Joe says, "You don't think I'm a little twisted too?" Even though Joe was a little more sheltered in her life compared to the Winchesters, I hope that it kind of just put into Dean's mind that, yeah, he's twisted, and he's pretty dark and scary, and he's got his demons too.
Joe's been through some shit.
But yeah, she's been through some shit, and that he's not the only one that's been through some shit. He's not the only one that has his level of mental health issues. So I'm hoping it kind of just like shook Dean to be like, maybe I'm not the only one who is the way I am.
Yeah, next week we have our discussion number 7, and our discussion topic is Ellen and Joe Harvell. And so we're gonna get into all the shit that Joe has been through.
Woohoo.
I think that if Dean Winchester had this full context, I think he would be feeling a little differently about how he talked to Joe in this week's episode.
Yeah.
I think so.
My favorite line of the week was also a Joe line, and it was when Joe found Teresa, and she said, "This won't make you feel any better, but I'm here to rescue you."
I love that one.
But that's it for this week. So, Meredith, where can the people find you?
I am Shades of Deyanira on Tumblr and Instagram and TikTok. And if you go there, you'll